Welcome, everybody, to You Can't Be Pretty and Smart. Well, at least not at the same time. We are your hosts, Zacchary Powell and John Zambarano.
Today, we are talking about who we are, how this podcast got here, Jupiter and Gemini, the Venus Cazimi, Mars and Taurus,
And our extra
and
special guest, our extra special topic, the Hot Rodent Man.
period.
Who is he? Where does he come from? Why do I have such a desire to be Zendaya in Challengers and have him and his best friend make out directly in front of me?
We're going to
Why?
unpack all of this and more under the auspices of this glorious Mercury Cazimi today. John, how are you?
I am so good. I
Yeah.
just got off of two client sessions, both of which were great.
Okay, Rich.
Okay, Rich. I mean, one of them was literally about someone literally booked like a mini session with me just to talk about if she could move, like if moving was like in the future, in the
Hmm.
relative future. And I was like, my fourth lord is in fact Kazimi. Like, yeah,
Period. I love
let's talk
that.
about your moving. Why not?
That's amazing. I'm
Um,
obsessed.
yeah, I'm good. Work has been, we'll talk about Mars and Taurus, but work has been
Period.
exhausting as hell. So
Period.
I'm very
Absolutely
glad to
has been.
be doing this instead of
Yes.
work,
Doing that.
instead of doing that.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm
Period.
I'm good. How are
Yeah.
you?
I'm also doing well. I worked this morning, opened the store. It was great. It was lovely. Got my wine done. I'm a wine girly. I'm the wine buyer at my store, and I really love it. And so it's been, yeah, a really lovely time to do that. And I just basically like ran through opening this morning. But yeah, I'm doing well. And
She
now we're
ate she
here, and
ate it
I'm so
up.
period. Thankfully, we're doing this on the Mercury Cazimi, so I was literally actually somehow able to do all that I did, considering the fact that I couldn't fall asleep until midnight and I had to wake up at 3:45.
Sister, yeah,
So I
that's
have
terrible.
literally zero sleep, going on zero sleep, but I feel energized,
Energized.
beloved, ready to go.
It's Venus hour. Well, it's Venus hour for me.
Oh,
She
right.
is trining
I thought
the
it was Mercury
ascendant.
hour where you are.
No, it's Venus hour
Oh my God. And Venus Day, of
and
course.
Venus day with Venus in
Uh-huh.
Gemini, which is very significant of one of the many uh deities that we have associated with.
Exactly. Exactly.
Period. End of sentence. You can't
Uh,
give too much. You can't give too much.
we're gonna keep it to
We're
ourselves.
gonna keep it to ourselves.
Mystery, you know.
Intrigue.
LOL.
Gemini rising ruled by Mercury in Scorpio. Keep it
Period.
mysterious.
Okay. Do you want to introduce yourself, like who you are, what you do, what's your
Yeah.
practice, etc.?
My name is John. I use really any pronouns. My online presence is mostly Astrologon because I'm funny. I'm a Gemini rising.
Period.
Um, I guess big three Gemini rising, Scorpio sun, Aquarius moon, lots of maleficence all around. I guess for both of us, very, very malefic.
Hmm.
I am first and foremost, I consider myself at this point Jyotishi, but I'm also my roots are in Hellenistic astrology. I've been doing um
Jyotishi meaning Vedic
Jyotishi
astrology.
meaning astrology, Vedic astrology, yes. I have been studying astrology as a whole for May was my 8 year, my Venus
I
cycle return anniversary of studying astrology, which I'm assuming Venus
love.
was probably in my first when I really got into astrology. If it was
Yeah.
my Venus synodic return like a few weeks ago, it was probably Venus like in my first. But I've been doing Hellenistic astrology for 6-ish years, seven, maybe 7 years. And I've been doing Jyotish for 3 years now, which is crazy. Time is wild.
Time is
Time
wild.
is wild.
I'm just having a realization that I also started like studying astrology 8 years ago when, and I did actually have the chart, Venus was in Gemini.
Yeah. It's yeah,
That's,
it had to have been
I think
Venus and Gemini.
it anyway, it's kind of crazy because now we're Venus Gemini and like that's actually insane. I did
Yeah.
not process that until right now when you just said that. That's wild.
Yeah, I do a lot of like I said, first and foremost, I'm a Jyotishi at this point. So I do lots of work regarding the deities and like
Yeah.
who is there for you, who can you reach out to.
Yeah.
um I myself am still like going through a major process of like figuring those
Who your
things
girlies
out.
are.
Yeah, who my
Yeah.
girlies are. Like I have a pretty solid team at this point, but
Yeah.
my Uttara Shada nature is very like anyone is invited to the table. Uttara
Yes.
Shada is my moon nakshatra, which we'll talk about later.
Well,
We'll get there.
Oh, girl,
But
we'll talk about it.
the deity that like governs or is said to like sit in Uttarashada is the Vishvadevas, who are like the universal gods.
Mm,
So there's this idea of
mm.
like kind of any of the gods are like there, and it's really
Yeah,
about like the effort that you put into it. And I think I take that into my practice when I like consult with clients. I'm like, listen, you don't have to have a single placement that signifies this deity. If you want to work with them,
do it.
let's do it.
Like
Um,
literally just do it.
yeah, so I do lots of deity work, lots of timing. I love prediction. I don't
Period.
really care to tell you about how you are. You know that more than I do. So yeah, that's me. That's what I do.
Love.
Um, yeah. Who are you,
Perfect.
Diva?
Tell me,
What's your
okay,
thing?
yes. I am a Black queer astrologer currently based in Seattle. I've been studying for also 8 years. Began with Venus and Gemini in my first, I think it was she was on my ascendant. I feel like I remember seeing the chart, she was on my ascendant. So,
Probably
Venus
was.
Cazimi that recently happened with the new moon, also on my ascendant. Very, very wild. I'm a Gemini rising, therefore, as well, obviously. Aqua Sun, Aries Moon. My practice, I practice traditional and Hellenistic astrology mixed with a number of like modern techniques. I work with secondary progressions, asteroids, locational astrology, looking at like, how our charts shift when we go even either visit or, move to other places. Really love doing readings like that. And one of my main focuses is astrological magic, planetary and stellar devotion, and deity work, similar to John. I'm known for having a deep and powerful relationship with Aphrodite, of course, but I have extensive relationships with many deities. Ares, Artemis, Dionysus, Asclepios, Fomalhaut, which Fomalhaut, if Fomalhaut, I forgot how people say it now.
How white people
The
say it?
translator, what?
Fomal hot.
Fomalhaut, which technically it's a transliteration. You're not incorrect by saying it, but Majd, friend of the pod, love them. Incredible Palestinian astrologer. Who taught us how to say a lot of transliterated Arabic words from astrology into to actually say them properly. So Femalhut, I hope I'm saying that properly. I think I am, just second guessing myself. But yeah, these deities, like I work with them a lot. I've helped people find who they're meant to work with, and who can be really helpful. And because not necessarily, there's always obviously practices of like, looking even at conjunctions with asteroids that you can see it. There's like certain, really, angular placements of certain planets, etc. But and also there's like Vedic techniques that look at it as well, as and have taught me. But there's also practices that we do as a result of a difficulty in our place and in our chart, that like help us like through the difficulties of those placements, by engaging with that the deity that is associated with it. So there's a lot of different ways to do that work, and I really love it as well. Yeah, and I'm excited.
Zacc was the one that turned me into an Artemis girl with
Oh,
my difficult moon placement. So
I love turning people onto her. I mean, especially yeah, for people who have difficult moons, either moon, kind of ruled by Mars or Saturn, the malefics, or in hard aspect to them, just like difficult mother wounds, go to Artemis. She's incredible, so powerful. Yeah, we'll probably talk about her at some point
at
in
some
one of
point,
these episodes.
we should probably do it like an Artemis Coven episode with everybody.
We
We
absolutely
have to.
should. Oh
We
my
have to.
gosh. Wait, more to come. Artemis Coven episode. Love, love, love. Okay. Do you want to jump into the origins of this podcast? Like how it came to be, what's
Oh,
going on?
all right. We're there. It's Norwalk 2024. Maybe
Oh,
what, 3 weeks ago now?
yeah, I know. I'm
Four.
like literally 5 seconds ago.
It feels like ages actually, but also feels like yesterday.
Exactly.
We are just being our Gemini selves, bantering
Yeah,
back and
all the
forth.
placements were starting to move into Gemini. I don't think Mercury was quite there yet,
Yeah,
but it was
Mercury was
Venus
still
and
in Taurus,
Jupiter
but Venus and Jupiter were definitely there.
and the Sun, obviously.
And the sun, yeah. And we were just in the lobby one night, and someone was like, "You two need to
What
monetize
is
this.
they're like, take this on the road. What is
Take this
going
on
on
the
here?
road." And I was like, "Oh, us."
Oh, what do you mean? And then
um,
essentially
yeah.
Norwalk ended, and you and I like basically texted you and I said, so like, remember when they said that?
So remember
Because
that
like,
podcast, and we were like,
remember
"Yeah."
because I think we should do podcasts, but let's take it on the road. Let's do it. So we're gonna starting this podcast, and then we're gonna do like a tour around America and
Mm-hmm.
Europe
Mm-hmm.
and Australia
And
and
Australia.
Australia. We're taking it around the world. We're going global, mama. No, but really, we're starting this podcast essentially because of that. Someone literally just was like, "What's this little thing y'all have?" And it was just us having placements moving through our first house, like riling us up, and we were
Mm-hmm.
just so fucking funny that people were like, you need to do something with this. And we were like, okay, bet,
Okay.
let's do it.
Message
And
received.
that's a period. And then we just kind of like started talking about it, conceiving the different ideas, have been coming up with it. And then we had basically been planning this for a while. And then like basically since Norwalk
Yeah, for the
ended.
last 3.5 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it wasn't until yesterday
Yes, yesterday, as the
when we
moon
literally
was
picked
rising.
that we picked the name, which is the most hilarious thing in the world because we just I was super stressed and I'm sure you were too. Like we could not come up with a name. And I was like, John,
Because,
we need to
well,
end this.
because first and foremost, like, well, this is an astrology podcast, but it's like an astrology and pop culture podcast. Like
Yes, exactly.
we're not gonna like, I'm not teaching you how to do ZR. I'm not
No.
teaching you how to do Vimshodari Dasha.
These podcast episodes will not be long. We love a long Chris Brennan,
Love.
Austin Coppock, episode.
Give me a notebook and a pen and teach me.
Intense.
Love.
That's not us.
That's not this.
We are not her. We can do it. We don't want to. That's
Saturn does rule the ninth. We can. I can teach you.
And I can teach you.
And I probably will at some point.
Literally. But this is not the forum
This
for
is
that.
not that.
We just want to be goofy girls being funny, talking about astrology and pop culture.
So there were so many, like we were like, it should be something about Mercury, it should be something about Gemini, it should have some astrology name. And
we were trying to come up with this, like, with like deeply Jupiter. We were trying to connect. We were like, what is connected to us? Like, what is connected to, like, I mean, literally the yoga of the that was in the chart of our election for this podcast. Like, we should do something based on that. We should do it based on blah, 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 blah. And it was just like not coming together. And yesterday, yes, while the moon was rising in your location,
literally off the cuff, I was just
off
like,
the cuff,
you can't be pretty and smart. And we both went,
and I screamed. And then I said, oh my gosh, honestly, Aphrodite has said that to me before. Honestly, she told me at Norwalk. That was the whole thing. And what she said was, you can't be pretty and smart. Well, not at the same time. And I was like, there we go. And literally where that like kind of phrase where she like, it was a joke. Okay. You can be pretty and smart. It's just a fucking joke. So let's start there. But second, and of course too, when you were like, oh, Aditi said this thing, like, I don't want people to like take it so literally. She was making a fucking joke.
Yeah.
But like one of the key things that she was talking about, what I was stressed about at the moment when she said this, before Norwalk, was like, I was trying to be like pretty girl, but I was also so nervous about being like typing on my computer, being like, I'm taking notes at Norwalk and everybody knows that I'm the smartest bitch in the room. And she was like, stop. And I was trying to get all my technology. None of it was coming together. I was like stressed the fuck out. And she said, it's okay to just be pretty. And I was like, period.
You had to channel Tyra Banks in life size when she's on the computer, just typing nothing.
Just
nonsense.
No, but seriously, she was like, sometimes it's just, you have to be one or the other. You can't be like intense book girl and then also hot diva. Everyone's seeing you. Everybody wants to see you. Everyone wants to like touch your body. And I'm like, you know what? You're so right.
You're right.
It was both a joke and also a current, like a moment.
Most jokes are rooted in some level of truth. So
yes, right? Exactly. So that's the name of our podcast. The real name is like, you can't be pretty and smart. And then the addition, obviously, is
well, not at the same time.
At least, yeah, exactly. Which is so brilliant, so beautiful. And it came out of nowhere. We literally prayed to the gods, begging Saraswati and Hermes to be like, give us a name. We need it yesterday.
It needs to happen now.
And they said, bet.
And it did.
And it's what I love about the name, and we've talked about this, is like, it is so Gemini because it's so unserious. It's so Jupiter and Gemini specifically. It's so unserious. Like, what does it even mean? It doesn't even talk about astrology. It isn't mentioned. No one's gonna know, but they're gonna listen.
Someone's gonna be on
here we are.
Spotify and be like, "You can't be pretty and smart. What is this about?" And we're gonna be like,
and they're gonna be like typing like warriors at their keyboards, just going at us about what pretty and smart is, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, it's just two queers. Okay, whatever."
Just these two F words talking about astrology. Okay, got it. Happy Pride.
Yeah. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
LOL.
Yeah.
The best thing ever is this name of this podcast.
It was a good journey, and I'm glad we settled on what we settled because it's so us.
it's so us. It's so Rohini. Which is, me.
Well, not all of us are that lucky. So
not all of us. Well, it's fine.
Not all of us can be Rohini. Okay. So not all of us can be the favored wife of the moon.
Oh.
It's okay. It's fine. I'm literally a piece of it. Some of us are hot rats, and that's totally fine.
Oh,
Uh,
oh, okay. A portent for the end of the episode. Okay, love it.
let's talk about Mars and Taurus.
Yeah, honey, it's been giving nothing. And I am wildly exhausted. And I've been thinking about this, and we obviously we're talking about this, where it was just like I feel so tired whenever Mars goes into Taurus. Obviously, that's our 12th. And so that's going to add something to it. And obviously, it's in Taurus, which just like is a slow, fixed Earth sign ruled by Venus, right? And like exalted, where the moon is exalted. So it's not necessarily a quick sign that's desiring to like get it all done. But I was thinking about the idea of like, why do we feel tired during Mars and Taurus period? Because like Mars is not vitality. Mars isn't the sun. The sun gives vitality,
The
sun
sun
gives
gives
energy,
vitality.
sun, like that's the energy source. So why
Mhm.
do we feel so exhausted? And I was thinking about the fact that like what Mars does provide us is that when we are exhausted, we can persevere. So a dignified Mars gives us
Mm,
the ability to persevere beyond our
mhm,
exhaustion or beyond our tiredness or beyond
mhm,
our like, hey, my brain's not functioning. Like I just need to keep going, right? Like just
mhm,
keep going. And like
mhm.
when Mars is in Taurus, it's like I think especially we are like very much unable to persevere. We just
Yeah.
have to like stop and just not do as many
Mhm.
things. Which I
And
think for us Gemini rising girlies ruled by Mercury, we're like, stop. I need to
I
what?
don't.
And especially we're malefic people, right? Like I have Mars in the first, and you have Mars angular as well.
I have
It's like
Mars and yeah.
it's just like we want to keep going, and Mars when they move into Taurus, it just like causes us to have to reckon with slowing down.
Everybody on mute,
Yep,
and we simply cannot. Yeah, I think a lot about Taurus being like, if we think about the dignity of Taurus, like ruled by Venus, exalts the moon, like it's not a place of action. It's not a place of
yeah,
movement. You are the bull, you are grazing, you are not moving unless you want to move. Like I'm not moving a bull. That's not something I have the capacity to do.
yeah,
So you move when it only in it's your volition. It's nobody
yeah,
else's.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, that it doesn't stifle the movement. I don't think Mars
No.
is like, I mean, there's this idea of, Mars is opposite to one of its domiciles. Yes, Mars is not super
Yeah,
strong, but
yeah.
like there's still movement there, but only
Hmm.
movement when it is genuinely desired and
And like
genuinely
needed.
necessary.
Yeah, like there's no other option but to move.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't know, for me at least, we did at my store, we moved literally everything around the other night, which I'm going to say I elected to do because
Oh,
my boss was like, why are you saying we should do it this day? And I was like, do you need me to explain the astrology to you? And he was like, yes, I do.
oh,
And after like 5 minutes, he was like, oh, it makes sense that we would do it that day then. And I was like, thank you, sister. Thank you so much. But after that, we have had to restructure the way we do certain processes before the store opens and after the store closes. And just like the amount of like trial and error of like, okay, let's try this way, let's try this way. Oh my God, like I'm supposed to be out at 11 every single night. There have been
yeah.
maybe one night that I have been, since when did we do this? May. It was like May. It was right after
Oh,
Norwalk. It was like
sure.
May
Right,
28th
right,
or
right.
29th or something. It was the
Yeah.
last Wednesday in May that we did this. Literally since for the past 2 weeks, I have been every single night not getting out at 11.
Honestly, that's also giving, and I know I don't mean to like foreshadow, but like it's also giving Jupiter and Gemini based on
Correct.
like a number of things where it's just like you just have to try a bunch of different
Mhm.
shit and see what
Yeah.
sticks.
And we have like just finally settled as of like Tuesday, just finally settled approaching this Mercury Cazimi, like
Oh
what the current plan of action is.
my goodness.
Yeah. So
Stressful.
yeah, it's just been, and it's like, it's work that is necessary. So it
Yeah.
gets done, but it
Yeah.
is like,
It takes for fucking
it
ever.
takes forever. Whereas like with Mars and Aries, it was like, boom, done, this on the shelf, next style, da da da,
Yeah.
club, another club, da. Like it
Bus,
was
plane.
plane, car, train, exactly. Like it was
Yeah.
easy. And
Yeah.
since Mars has moved into Taurus, it's been like, holy hell, like,
Yeah.
why isn't this getting done?
Hmm.
And yeah, Mars in the 12th, I have been having really intense dreams.
Have you?
Yes, 12th house of sleep in Vedic.
Mm,
Mars agitating my like nocturnal realm, my subconscious realm.
sure.
Yeah, I've had a lot of work related dreams, which has
Oh.
been really annoying.
Mm.
Um, yeah, just like agitating my place. I have trouble like falling asleep, like being it's the summer, it's the middle of June, like it's getting hotter, like being too hot and then taking blankets off, being too cold, like the
Yes.
like the
Yeah.
whole like getting into my 12th house like subconscious space has been wildly difficult.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think it helps that Venus and Mars can't see each other right now.
Yeah. No. Right. Yes.
I'm curious once Venus moves into Cancer if the Mars transit gets easier with Mars being able to see Venus. But
Mars moves into. Do you mean Venus? Sorry.
when Venus moves into Cancer in a few days, Mars will be able to see
Oh,
its
BC.
ruler.
Got it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. 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 Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So
Got
like,
it.
will it get easier? I hope so, but I don't actually know.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Fingers crossed. Right,
fingers
because
crossed.
her ruler. I mean, excuse me, his
His
ruler.
ruler.
Mars's
Yeah.
ruler. Yeah. Yeah. Here's hoping. I mean, it tends to be a slow, like it tends to be so slow the entire time. But you're absolutely right. If you can, I mean, that's the help, right? Like the mitigation.
Mm-hmm.
That's theirs when she can see it. At least she can
Mm-hmm.
say like, "Hey, girl, you can find the arrows in my bathroom or something." I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
In the storage closet, you know.
Yeah.
Like if you need something, like here you go. Yeah, that's real. That's real. Um, I mean, the other thing that's been happening, like the other transits that have been happening, obviously is the Venus Cazimi and the new moon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and honestly, wild. What has, I mean, I don't know that I had a ton happen. And this is in our first, and it was on my ascendant. Like it was loud, but it wasn't like there wasn't necessarily a ton that happened to me necessarily. Probably like definitely internal stuff, I would say, obviously. But it's like it wasn't anything like massive, even though it
Mm-hmm.
feels like it should have been. But
Mm-hmm.
I think what was the kind of the interesting thing that happened during this period is the Chanel shakeup.
Mm-hmm.
So the massive brand Chanel had one of what they're basically the artistic director Virginie Viard. She left her post
Bye.
after 5 years of being the artistic director and 30 years basically at the brand. Um, and she was Karl Lagerfeld's. So Karl Lagerfeld had been the creative director for like a
Mm-hmm.
very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Very successful, very creative, brought this like life to the brand when it was really kind of like dying back in the 80s. And so he like revived this brand. And so she was basically, he described her, Virginie, as his left and right hand. Like, not just my right hand, not just like my second. Like,
Also,
we are
Gemini,
also
both hands,
both
both literally both
hands.
hands.
Both hands. She is what? A Gemini, Sun in Gemini, and Mercury in Gemini. Um, and it was really, I mean, really fascinating because, okay, so he was like so creative. Not all of his stuff was good. Let's be real, but his stuff
And
was creative. He
it was
tried
prominent.
things.
It was prominent.
He took risks. It was really good. When she took over, it was giving like no point of view. She was like, I think she was left in right hand for too long to have her own design point of view. She had been working with Carl for so long that she couldn't come up with her own point of view. So the clothes, I mean, were so deeply French, like it's like deeply French style, but rather boring. Um, Rather like just like not all that interesting. And some would say matronly. I know Imani Harmon said
It's giving
matronly, and
mother.
it's giving mother, but not in a good way, you know. And like some of it was good, some of it wasn't. It was just inconsistent, not usually consistently great. And I
Mm,
think it's because she was. How do you be someone's number two for so long and then be thrust into this massive position and then have your own point of view? Like that that's
mhm.
hard. That's a hard thing to do. And I think she tried her best. I think what's fascinating though too is that this shakeup happened and it was on the new moon day, like the day of the new moon,
Mhm.
Cazimi. So the new moon was exactly at the, like Cazimi was technically the exact Venus Cazimi was on Tuesday, June 4th. The new moon was June 6th, Thursday. But they were still all at 16 degrees, right? So Hellenistically, it's still Venus is still Cazimi during that new moon. And so it was just wild that this shakeup happened, especially because she was there for 5 years. She wasn't really having a good creative vision, but the
Mhm.
money, like last year's sales in 2023, highest, like so high. So we were
Mhm.
thinking, it's not necessarily, hey, she's not doing well, she's not bringing in resources. The brand is still doing well. So
Hmm.
you'd think perhaps they would perhaps keep her, try it like one more time to do more. But no, done, ended. And so I tried to look up the different charts to see stuff. It's really hard, honestly. There isn't much because we don't have exact dates of when people
I was
started.
gonna say,
We
and
have
we don't have a chart
years.
for like the founding of Chanel as a
Well,
brand.
we don't. And like that's the thing. And like I tried to find the founding of Chanel. So like I looked up there's like a lot of stuff, but there aren't exact dates. So like the first thing is that she started Coco Chanel started a hat shop that was called Chanel Modes, I think is what it was called.
Hmm.
And that was started in 1910. They had a photo on the Chanel website of her taken wearing her hat, wearing one of
Mm.
her hats for a magazine ad in October 1st, 1910. And I looked at that chart. There wasn't really giving much, right? There wasn't something that was like connecting with like what this like transit, what this Cazimi
Mm.
was happening. Like the Cazimi New Moon wasn't really connecting. So I was like,
Hmm.
okay, whatever. And then, when then I looked at the chart, there was like the next kind of moment for Chanel was happening in 1913 when she opened her actual couture shops, where she was actually making clothes. And like the photo they had of her in front of her first shop in Deauville
Hmm.
was clearly in 1913. Like I know what those clothes look like. It's summer based on what she's wearing, and also the photo like the sun had so much light, so I was like, we're solidly in summer, right? And so I just put August and Saturn. Okay, these are not exact dates. Hear me. I'm not claiming anything.
Preface. Don't come for
Yeah,
us.
don't come for us. So, but I put like August 1st, 1913, and Saturn was at what? 15 degrees with Gemini. And I was like,
She
oh,
also Coco Chanel has Saturn in Gemini.
okay. And that's
She.
interesting, right? Like her Saturn return was her actually coming up with her couture shop, right? Like that's interesting. And so, I mean, so what degree is her? I can't remember what her degree of her Saturn
Her
is.
Saturn's at 9.
9. Okay, right. It's earlier on Aldebaran. God, that feels right. Um, yeah. So I just think like
Saturn in
anyway,
Rohini.
yeah, Rauhini and yeah, exactly. It really makes sense for the clothing and for the like largesse and like the extravagance and it becoming a luxury brand.
Yeah.
Her creating a luxury brand, it really feels right. But yeah, so August 1st, 1913, weirdly, Saturn was at 15 degrees of Gemini, like 1 degree away from where this Cazimi is. So potentially that might have been the start. Who's to say? I don't know. But that was kind of like the only charts that kind of like seemed to bring in some connection to it.
Sure.
And then I tried to look at Virginie's chart, and that's where it kind of came a lot louder. So she has the Sun in Gemini, early Gemini, I think 4 degrees, and then she has Mercury at retrograde at 20 degrees of Gemini, which is like the exact degree where it is. It's like less than 4 degrees away from this Cazimian new moon, so
Mm-hmm.
pretty significant. We don't know her. We don't have a time chart for her, but it's pretty
Mm-hmm.
significant hitting that. The other really, really, really significant thing was that on that day was her exact. I mean, within 3 arc minutes, her Mars return in Aries at 28 degrees, like within 3 arc minutes. It was
Mm-hmm.
crazy. I was like, whoa, like sounds like leaving a place. Like I don't know what Mars rules in her chart, but like it was extensive. It felt extensive. It felt
Mm-hmm.
loud. So it was just interesting to see this kind of like massive revelation of like a brand like getting rid of one of their own after she had been there for just over a Saturn cycle. She started when Saturn was in Sag, actually, in 1987, and she's leaving now at Saturn Square. Right? It's
Mm-hmm.
at the second set.
The opening,
Uh,
yeah, the opening
yeah,
square after the
opening
return.
square.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's just super fascinating. And I looked at, like the
Mm-hmm.
specific dates of like when she kind of like actually took over and when but like, and there wasn't like
Mm-hmm.
a ton of stuff, but it was really, really fascinating to see that like, yeah, this Mars can, exact Mars return, the Venus Cazimi on her Mercury. And I think it just in general, this makes sense that like a revelation of around a Venusian thing coming to light and them realizing, hey, we need a new vision. We need a new
Mm-hmm.
start, right? Like some
Mm-hmm.
people look at the Venus Cazimi, like the direct Venus Cazimi. Some people look at it at the beginning. Some people look at the end. But either way, Cazimis tend to be a beginning of a cycle or like a key part of the cycle. And for
It's a
them,
peak in the cycle. Yes.
exactly. So people look at it differently. But I think to me, this kind of solidifies, at least in my knowledge, like this is a new cycle. Obviously, it was a new moon
Mm-hmm.
too, but like they were starting over. They were like,
Mm-hmm.
we need a new creative vision. You are not doing it, regardless of how much money we brought in last year. This is not it. We need to keep going. We need to find something new. We need something fresh and
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And so, like one of the things online too was like, oh, well, I guess I'll talk about this. So the other thing that happened like on June 12th, which obviously was a bit like a week or so after, a few days ago, but 2 days ago, in fact, a little bit later, Diet Prada, which is an account that everybody who like is a fashion girly or just loves gossip should follow. They are an account on Instagram, and they're also, I think, on Twitter and Threads. But they post the majority of their posts are on Instagram, and they're this like anonymous-ish people
It's Gossip Girl
who
for fashion.
it's Gossip Girl for fashion. But like what they started doing, their posts were about people doing looking at brands and how they were stealing smaller brands' ideas. And that's what they started
Mm.
doing. So it's like really incredible. So like that was most of their posts is like, oh, look at how Louis Vuitton took this person's idea. Like, and like it's an exact match. And they would do that. Like, and then when they did it with Dior, they did it with blah, 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 and they just kept on going through.
Mm-hmm.
And then since then they've gotten really, really massive as like a voice in the fashion world. And so one of the things that the thing that they posted on June 12th was that there was a Dior, like a scandal with Dior where an investigation by the Italian government agency for workers' protections revealed that subpar working conditions for subcontractors who were making Dior bags. So they found that workers slept at factories in order to provide 24-hour manpower, which was confirmed by mapped electricity cycles that showed consistent energy use day and night, including holidays. And so like people were
That's
being like
insane.
worked down to the bone, right? And they also showed that like safety mechanisms that were trying to like they kept people safe while using the machinery were tampered with to allow for faster operation. So they like polished machines in a way that like removed basically the protection guards. It horrible. Horrible. And all of this like allowed the operators, like the subcontractors, to only charge Dior 53 euros for a bag that ended up being 2,600 euros, which is like 20, almost just under $2,800 US dollars. So like
That's insane.
why like wild, right? And so that comes out. And like I know this is not exactly it's a week after the Cazimi, but these two really felt like, I mean, these are two, interestingly enough, French brands. Like having these like revelatory moments of like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you're doing something wrong, or hey, this is not working. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we often, especially online, people were like angry at the Venus Cazimi for not being great. And I think we need to like allow astrology to be itself, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Like just because Venus is a benefic, and I think it happens more with Venus than Jupiter necessarily, but like
Yeah, I
we
would I
expect
don't know.
so
People love
much.
to make Jupiter a malefic. They love to
No,
do it.
you're right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think, but I'm saying like what they also seem to like to do is like make Venus have to be nice when
Mm,
that's not always her job.
that's not always her job.
And she's not in detriment or fall in this case where that's where many people would be like, oh, that's where the bad things happen.
Hmm.
Like this is a
But she's not
moment,
happy. She doesn't
but she's not
love
happy,
Gemini.
right? She doesn't love Gemini. I mean, but she's also like not super sad.
No.
She's just like somewhere neutral in the middle. Someone would argue, right? And like I think that like sometimes we have to like allow like things to be not great. Like things can just reveal themselves. Like that's what happened here, right? Like a lot of things. Yes, that like you could have had your like beautiful, lovely moment where you had your meet cute and you met this person that you like
Hmm.
falling in love with. It could be this moment of like revelatory beauty, absolutely 100%. But also she has the job of revealing the things over which she rules. And in
Like
this case,
Venus
it was
rules.
a
Venus
shakeup.
rules fashion. Venus rules fashion.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
Cazimi is bringing things to light. She is
Yes.
receiving an overcoming square from
Yeah.
Saturn. Like the
Yes.
entire time that all these things
Yeah.
are in Gemini,
Yeah.
Saturn is in Pisces and is
Yeah.
literally dominating them.
Yeah.
So,
Within 3 degrees too. So it's like
like,
a solid domination.
yeah, like Saturn is like, no, fuck you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect this Venus Cazimi to be like, I
The
fell in love and
most
like, blah, blah, blah.
beautiful.
Like, no,
Yeah.
Saturn is in the exaltation of
There's a
Venus.
job to do.
Is
There's a
10th
job
from,
to do.
yes, like it's not all like sunshine and roses.
No. And I just think like I don't know. I don't know what it was about the situation, but I just need more people to like accept and desire the astrology to like, and especially Venus. I don't know. I have like a thing about her where I like want to protect her, like where it's like let her be who she is. Let her
Yeah.
be difficult.
Mhm.
Let her reveal difficult things.
Mhm.
this is not like a pleasant thing for Virginie. For some people, it's a very pleasant thing for them because they're like, finally,
Hmm.
this person is not in the position anymore. But at the end of the day, like this is like a change up that like likely needs to happen. And honestly, 30 years at like also, no, we're not going into this, but that sounds like a ZR thing. 30 years is quite a long time to be a part of a brand. And her being at her peak
I
for
mean, that's a
20
Saturn cycle.
something
That
years,
is a that
it's
is
fully a Saturn cycle, right? And it's certainly, like the period of time when she was like prominent, like she started as an intern, but when she started to actually have a job there, that like we're talking like 20-ish years. So we're fully talking about likely a ZR period, that ending, right? That peak period ending or that positive period
mhm,
ending. And so like I just feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm just on my soapbox, but I feel like we need to like allow Venus to not be cute and nice all the time and just like
mhm,
also allow the necessary revelatory moments to happen and the
mhm,
necessary changes to occur.
mhm. I mean, I think that goes. We can extend. Yes, I do agree that it happens a lot of times with Venus, but I think we can extend that idea to all of the planets. Like
Period. Yeah.
Saturn sometimes can bring good things. Not often, but
Not
like,
often. I was
but
like, did you see that? I was like,
yeah, yeah. You're like,
when? I don't remember that.
but like Saturn
Just
and
kidding.
Mars, yes, they're the malefics.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can bring positive change, just like
Yes.
in the way Jupiter and Venus are the benefics. And sometimes they can bring things that are shitty.
Yeah.
But like a Cazimi moment is the time to reveal and bring things to the light, or for a
Yeah.
cycle to change.
Yes.
And the inherent nature of the planet is not going to dictate the nature of the change. It's going to dictate what the change falls in. For example, Venus,
Yeah.
the change was in fashion.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I don't know, a Saturn change, maybe the next Saturn Cazimi, there's something that happens with like miners. I don't know.
Yeah.
Miners
Right.
as in
Yeah.
people digging mines, not like young
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
people, but
I
like,
understood. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I don't because like Saturn rules those things. Like
Yes.
it's not always the inherent nature of the planet. It is what the planet has dominion over.
Yeah. I mean, in this case, it would be, Saturn and Pisces, so likely Fisher people.
Exactly. Yeah.
People who've
Fisher.
been,
Thank you, fishermen. People who are on boats for a while.
yeah.
You're isolated. You're in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah. That's what it is. And so, yeah, no, I mean, that was like, so this Venus Kazemi, I don't know, did something happen for you? Like, did you notice certain things? I mean, obviously I talked for a long time about that, but I just thought it was fascinating. Like these big fashion moments happened. And I don't know that there was necessarily like a warning. Obviously it
Mm,
could have happened. The astrology is there for it could have happened, but it
mm-hmm,
felt so big
mm,
that happened in that moment.
yeah,
I probably because of this relatively rare occurrence of Venus being Cazimi while there was a new moon and it was exactly
mm-hmm,
square Saturn. Like
mm-hmm,
there was a
mm-hmm.
lot going on.
I mean, for me, it was definitely more of like a. I am inclined to think about how the transits are affecting my sidereal chart and how all
Mm,
this Cazimi was in sidereal Taurus in my
right.
12th.
Sure, sure,
And so
sure.
for me, it was a lot about like my actual connection to Venus
Mm,
and like on a spiritual level, like
yeah.
with my
Oh,
Venus talisman and my
yes, I was
connection
gonna say.
to
I was like, I didn't know if you were gonna
Venus.
say, but yeah, that
Yeah,
makes a lot
yeah.
of sense.
And like Venus, I have developed in like the very recent few weeks a much better connection to the goddess Sarasvati, and like she has a Mercury, Venus, Jupiter connotation. For me, it's really Mercury that is like the conduit for this connection with Sarasvati, but like yeah, it's like a lot of it has been in my like spiritual life, with it all falling in the sidereal Taurus place in my
Mm,
12th in my sidereal chart. So that is how it has manifested for me. And I think, I mean, you can translate that to being in my first, obviously my spiritual connection is like very, very important and like
yeah, yeah,
very much dictates like myself and my first house things. So I think that it is
yeah.
present there as well, especially with it being Venus in a Mercury sign and the specifics to
Mhm.
Sarasvati, with Jupiter there as well. Like those are her three
Yeah.
components.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was much more like personal for me, or about like my like, and I had some bomb sex last week with
Ah,
Venus Kazimi. Like just that whole
yes.
week was like very good
I love
with
that.
that. Shout out to my
Shout out to
partner.
that Venus talisman,
Shout out
you
to the
know?
Venus Talisman. Shout out to my partner. I did tweet the other day. I was like, no, babe, the Venus Talisman stays on during sex, because that is like a real thing that
It
happened.
is real, real. Also, shout out to Jeannie,
Shout out to Jeannie,
Tides of Tiffy,
my love, my light,
who makes
my baby
the
gorge. Yeah, who
talismans.
makes the talisman? Um,
Incredible.
yeah, it was like there was nothing wildly negative that happened with
No, yeah.
the Kazimi, which I
Yeah,
mean on a
yeah.
personal level, like it is Venus. Like Venus is
Hmm.
my benefic of sectum in my chart. Should be
Yeah.
good things for me personally.
And who's to say? I mean, we don't know the personal life of Virginie at Chanel, but Maybe it
Yeah,
was a relief.
maybe she was
You know what I
getting
mean?
overwhelmed. I mean, imagine with,
They have to. Do you know how those houses, 10 shows a year? Do you know that's an insane amount of
and
creativity?
like you said, she's a Gemini Sun and Mercury.
Yeah,
They're receiving the Saturn decimation. Like, I can't
yeah,
imagine that she was
yeah,
feeling positive about
yeah,
Mercury or Saturn being 10th from her Sun and Mercury. Like, that's
yeah,
probably not was not fun for her.
yeah. Yeah, it might be like an absolute relief, especially considering how much people talked about like the zest not being as much there. Again, the financial stuff was there. They were making a lot of money. They
Yeah,
were like their sales were up.
but
Um,
at what cost?
but at what cost? Yeah, I
Especially
mean,
for Virginie specifically.
yeah, no, I think so, and I think there's something to be said. Like I don't know, people talk about this, or specifically, I remember like Kelly Surtees, who's one of my teachers, and she talks about like people who have their either ascendant ruler or like prominent planets combust or under the rays, like desiring to be the person who's behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if her being thrust into the spotlight, it was I think starting in 2018 when she started to take the bow at the end of shows because Carl was tired, is how he said it.
Mm,
And I just wonder if her being thrust in the spotlight was something that she just did not actually want. She was like very fine with being the girly in the background doing the work, right?
mm-hmm.
She was like, she did costume, she went to school for costume design for
Mm-hmm.
theater, right? And then went to Chanel as an intern for embroidery. And then
Mm-hmm.
Carl was like, "You're incredible. Let's work together." And they had this beautiful relationship, right, for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if if it really felt like a burden taking on
Mm-hmm.
all of this responsibility, especially for such a massive house. For again, 10 shows a year.
Mm-hmm.
It is just an enormous amount of creativity that people have to churn out for these big houses.
I know that we don't have a birth time for her, but like based on if that was the feeling that she's like, I'm okay
Sure.
being like second in command, I
Yeah.
am inclined to believe that she's just maybe doesn't have a whole lot of angularity.
Yeah.
Like from personal experience, myself who does not have a whole lot of angularity, like most of my
Yeah.
planets are succeeding arcadant. Like,
Yeah.
I am perfectly fine with not being the spokesperson. Like,
Mm,
I will do the research, I will do the work, I will feel so good about that part of it. But like, you can absolutely present that, and you can be
yeah.
the face for that.
Yeah.
I do not need that.
Yeah.
So
No, that would make sense. That absolutely would make sense. Um, Really fascinating. Really, really fascinating. All right. Do we want to jump into Jupiter and Gemini discussions?
yeah, why not? I mean, it feels like the most. I think it's the most pressing, not the most pressing, but the loudest thing, or the thing we have the most kind of to
Yeah,
talk
I
about.
mean,
And
it's like a big,
it's the rarest thing. It's only gonna happen once every 12 years. Like,
exactly.
Venus goes into Gemini every single year.
Yeah, right, right,
Jupiter
right.
and Gemini is once every 12 years. It's
Right.
large scale.
I mean, it has been pretty significant. I mean, we were at Norwalk and like it shifted signs while at Norwalk
Mhm.
and
And
like
that shift was palpable.
palpable. We got loud. Once Jupiter, when it moved into our first house, I mean, like literally we were giggling
Mhm.
nonstop.
It happened on the Saturday, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I literally, like, yeah, I remember after the first day, I was like, I'm exhausted. Like,
yeah.
I can't do anything.
And then Jupiter came into our first and was like,
And I was
"Bam,
like,
bitch,
okay,
you're
I'm
awake."
reborn.
Yeah, I mean, like, and what was really funny with Jupiter and Gemini, so like after obviously Norwalk, and I had been having like a bunch of shakeups in my life, I guess, in general too. But I had this like basically so my Jupiter and Gemini story is essentially on the first Jupiter day of Jupiter and Gemini, Jupiter being in Gemini, which was that new moon. Honestly, it was the day of the new moon,
Mhm.
that Thursday. Um, I had this like crazy experience. So basically, I was engaging with Famelhut, which is that royal fixed star that I talked about, mentioned before. I was engaging with the star and like the materia that Caitlin Kopic makes at Spirit and Sundry. Shout out to Caitlin. And I was engaging with that materia and the star, and I was just like they were kind of like insistent on me taking a journey. I had been going through a lot, and I'd gotten paid that day,
It's like you have
and so they
Jupiter
were
in the
like,
third or something.
it's almost
Crazy.
it's almost like it's almost
Crazy.
like so which God, I love Jupiter in the third. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, but
MKS Jupiter, girly. Let's hold our horses first of all. Okay.
I do love her though. I do love her. We can talk about that later. Anyway,
Okay.
so um basically, yeah. So I had this experience of like basically it was the new moon. I mean, new moons make us tired because there's just no light. Um, and I had been going through obviously again a bunch, but like I had gone through a bunch, and there was like a need to celebrate that, right? I was very tired, but the gods were like pushing me, pressing me to go out, basically go into the city, and to
Yes, city
have some
girl.
fun, be a city guru, go to some of my fave bars, and then and experience that. And so I was gonna go, and I was gonna bring my Jupiter talisman, my Jupiter and Pisces talisman, and there was a distinct like, no, don't do that. And I was like, why? Like, what are you doing? Anyway, so I'm getting ready, and I just like I have and I'm just like led on this journey to like go to Seattle. And so it starts off, I'm getting ready, and I'm just like stressed. And like I get to and I look up the how to get there. First of all, three buses, two transfers to get into the city. Crazy, wild, never happened to me before. I'm like, what is going on? And also, the app wasn't working properly and wasn't showing the like ride properly. Like I swear to you, three different options were shown to me, but like shown as the same bus. And I was like, I don't understand. And like I tried it multiple times at the same time and it just didn't, whatever, number one. And I get to the bus stop, the bus is like 25 minutes late. And I'm like, okay, cool. I like sit down at the bus stop. I'm like all stressed. I'm like, should I have brought my Jupiter talisman? I don't really know. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like all stressed about it. Then I look down, and the shoes that I'm wearing, that are like some of my favorite shoes that I wear, my silver ones. If you know, you know. And like the part of the shoe is like coming off the sole, and I was like, oh. And I had no idea. I didn't notice it at all. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. And I'm like, what if it's gonna kind of come off? And they were like, the guys were like, just sit there at the fucking bus and just be there. I was like, okay, God, okay. Um, I'm all stressed about that. Nervous, nervous, nervous. Jupiter days and hours are never nerve-wracking for me. Ever.
Yeah.
Ever, ever, ever.
Agreed.
It,
It's wildly calming.
yes, exactly. I'm never stressed. Like I'm like that's the moment where I'm like normally, okay, just give it up. Just like who cares? Let's move on, right? So the bus finally comes. Finally comes. Fully thought the bus was like not gonna come, and it did. Okay. Two stops later. I'm not from a place where teenagers take the regular bus from school to get home.
Mhm.
Apparently, that's Bellevue. So I two stops later, it stopped at a high school, and I mean like 50 kids get on the bus, and I'm like, whoa! Hashtag Gemini, hashtag Mercury. What's going on?
The
Like
students.
the
The
students,
children.
literally the children, and they were just so loud, so boisterous, like so blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wow, what a moment. Then I'm like neurotically, because I'm such a Mercury person, like neurotically watching like every single stop for this bus because I knew I have to catch another bus and then catch another bus, right? Like this is stressful. So I'm paying attention, paying attention, paying attention. Somehow, still with all my paying attention, I miss the stop. I miss the stop I have to get off, and I get off the next stop. 15-minute walk all the way back. Thank goodness the second bus was also delayed. So I make it all the way back, and I sit down for like 5 minutes, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? But I'm realizing now that I'm in a Jupiter and Gemini like ritual, right? Like I'm being shown what Jupiter and Gemini is. And so I start like taking notes in our shared doc about like the episode or like what we're going to talk about for our podcast. And I'm like, we have to talk about Jupiter and Gemini. And so I'm writing all the things down that happened to me because I like when you're I don't know for folks who know, but like essentially when you're in ritual, like sometimes like the thing is happening so deeply in your brain and around you that like you're nervous you're gonna forget because you have to explain it later to people. But anyway, so I'm like making sure I'm like taking furious notes. Also, Gemini, like what's going on? Like I'm so nervous.
Being
I'm gonna
smart, not pretty in that moment.
fully, and that was another moment of like just let it go. I was like, I can't. I'm so stressed. Um, and which is again not a typical Jupiter experience. Do matter dignity? I mean, like detriment or fall, sure, an experience, but like it's been so long since Jupiter has been in fall or detriment. The last time it was in Capricorn, right?
Not,
like a long time ago.
A long time ago.
And
2020.
so yeah, 2020 exactly. And so it's been a long time, and so I forgot what it feels like, and everything else sucked in 2020 anyway. So like you didn't say, oh, that's because of Jupiter.
That's Jupiter. That's Jupiter and Capricorn. No, yeah, that wasn't the only thing else.
Yeah, that wasn't like the only thing going on. That was awful. Blocking that out. Anyway, so then I get on the second bus finally, And I'm on the second bus, and then I like am walking to, and I'm furiously like looking at the next one. I get off. I finally get the last bus, and I get back to my place, or to the excuse me, I get to the bar, and it's called the Gemini Room. I obviously had to go. Gemini New Moon, had to do it. So I finally get there an hour late. Hour later than I thought. I fully thought I was going to arrive at the beginning of happy hour. Did not arrive at the beginning of happy hour. I arrived an hour and a half after happy hour began. I really had to order. And the place is so lovely. Obviously, John, you and
It's
I have been
so
before.
fucking cute.
So
I
cute.
love it.
The aesthetic is giving. The people are giving. They're so cute. They're so hot. First of all, everybody is
Yeah,
so
everyone
hot who
is
works there.
gorgeous.
And the drinks are really, really good. And so I order a drink. I was trying to pick one that like made sense. So it's a Gemini called the Gemini Room. It is also like astrology adjacent. You know, they had a drink called Mercury in retrograde, so they're not actually astrologers, but they're giving something that's trying to be astrology. Um, and so anyway, so I order from this lovely woman, young woman, who was like making the drinks. And so I asked, can I have the sea goat, which is a Capricorn drink? I was going to order something more relevant, but I liked this drink. So she was like, oh, by the way, we don't have the particular aperitif. We don't have the Cinar. And I literally thought she was saying Cinar, like making a joke. And
As if she was from Australia.
yeah, as if she was from making an Australian accent. No, it's just Cinar. Like Cinar, this is like a name of an aperitif. Anyway,
I can't.
but I did
can't
not
not hear it in you trying to be Australian.
No.
Like it's the only way I can hear
the
it.
same. It's the same. Like Cinar and Cinar. Like same sounds.
Same word.
Anyway, so she had like the substitution. She's like, it's not the same drink, but it's really good. And it was really delightful. And then it just had this like hour and a half journey of this bartender just like talking. I loved it. I loved every moment. She was giving me so much knowledge. She was giving me so much information. She was talking about these deeply obscure alcohol, spirits I had never heard before. She was like, have you heard of this beautiful what was it?
Sinar.
Cinar. No. Have you heard of this? She's like saying it was an alternative to gin. It was a French alcohol. I was totally gonna write it down and talk about it, but I forgot what it is. Anyway, so she mentions it and she shows it to me. I'm like, no, I haven't. I was like, can I try it? I don't know how she thought it was an alternative to gin. It was juniper. It was a juniper liquor, but it smelled like tequila and tasted almost like nothing. And I was like, okay, alternative where? But like interesting. Okay. And I was like, oh wow, do they just like allow you to like, like the owners? I'm like, how do you have all this? And she's like, oh yeah, I just like asked them and they buy a case of it. I'm like, wow, that's pretty amazing, right? She's like talking about all these things. She makes a drink like an alternative, she calls it the last word. And I never heard of that, but whatever. I taste it and it tastes exactly like a completely different drink, which is an aviation. And I'm like, and aviations are one of my favorite drinks. So I loved the drink.
What's
but I was like,
aviation?
Aviation is, well, it depends on which version, but the version I like is gin, creme de violette. So it's purple. And like lime juice, I think, and something else, and simple syrup. It's really lovely. It has a maraschino cherry. I could usually do a dark maraschino cherry. It's incredible. So good. And that's what this tasted like, but it looked nothing like that. It was just like this really wild experience and like so much stimulation in what was supposed to be a relaxing drink. Right? Like it was just so funny. So like this entire experience. So I was like, is that what, at first I was like, is Jupiter and Gemini a knowledgeable bartender? And I was like, at the end, I was like, not really. Like it's lots of information, but not necessarily all of it.
But you don't know what to do with it.
Like, okay, this is interesting. This obscure French juniper liquor is interesting. It is not a replacement for gin. Like, you know what I mean? It's interesting. It's but fascinating, super fascinating. So I don't know. I've been talking a long time, but essentially, like, what came from this for me was like this idea of Jupiter. Like, when dignified, Jupiter has this like deeply like the ease of spirit, like this like you can just like trust that things will work out. Like, okay, it'll be fine, like whatever. But when detriment or fall, it seemed to be like it might work out, it also might not. It might work out, but it will take a lot more effort than usual, or it'll be just like deeply inconvenient. And so like it happened, but like I'm tired now.
But at what cost?
Yeah, but at what cost, right? Like, and so there's this idea of like success in a non-traditional way. Like, yes, I did get to the bar. I got to the bar an hour and a half after I wanted to get to the bar.
Mhm.
Yes, I did have a good fun time. It wasn't necessarily relaxing, which wasn't a bad thing. I liked the stimulation, but it wasn't a typical Jupiter. Like, basically, a dignified
It, what,
Jupiter experience at a bar would be
it's like
like
kick back,
them,
relax,
yes,
have a
and them just
drink.
like
Yeah.
giving you a drink and it being perfect, and there not necessarily being no discussion, but not being constant discussion. There was no. She almost didn't breathe in between, right? And it was just like it was so lovely. I mean, like again, I don't. This is not shade. Like I loved every
Bartender,
second
if
of
you're
it.
listening, we are obsessed. We
We are
love.
obsessed with you. Um, and like it was just funny. There was also people who were there who were like Geminis. It was like their birthday. Both two women who were like not
Two,
together. Two Gemini.
Gemini.
Together who are not together. It was their birthday on the same day. One of the women basically like she and her husband make beef jerky. Um,
Sure.
and we're selling it to Costco. They had a meeting with Costco earlier that day. They were already in Costco stores, but now they were like having a meeting to become national in every single store essentially,
Mm.
or in most stores across the country. And I was just like, that's hilarious. Like Mercury
You're
tends to have to do
expanding
with
your
snacks.
enterprise,
Expanding enterprise, absolutely, 100%. And also their enterprise is like a snacky thing. It's not a meal. It's not a Jupiter feast. It's a snack. The little baby girl like
using your
hit
hands.
it and run. You know. So I don't know. Tell me what you've been experiencing with this Jupiter and Gemini transit. That was my like literal like, Jupiter and Gemini story, ritual,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah. I think so. For me, it is, I mean, to root it like in my chart of my experience, Jupiter rules my seventh and 10th, much like it rules yours, moving through the first. There has been literally, as of the last week, so many rumors and suspicions about who in my position is getting transferred. So, as a part of my
Mm.
position, for those that don't know, I don't really want to say like what it is because I don't
Yeah,
want
no, right.
to
It's
like
fine. Yeah.
get
Yeah, yeah.
doxxed. But they can basically call me up at any time and say,
Yeah.
hey, starting on Monday, you have to go to you are working at this different store. It can be any store in my region.
But it has to be
Um,
with, I mean, I think it has to be somewhat reasonable,
it
right?
has to
Like,
be somewhat, yes. So there are stores in my region that are literally 4.5 hours away. So for them to say,
right.
hey, tomorrow, that's not cute. But like
Yeah, right.
there are a few stores within an hour drive radius, which is not
Yeah.
unreasonable. It's not ideal,
Yeah.
but it's not unreasonable to be like, hey, you need to drive an hour for your work, for your job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as of maybe the last week, I want to say the last like 7-ish days. Yeah, people have been like, are you transferring? Da-da-da. And I'm like, I literally have, you'll know when I know. Like, we are going to receive this information together. I actually
Yeah.
do not know. And so this idea of like the 7th and 10th Lord moving into the first and
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
like so much about my job and like potential movement and growth and expansion. Because the whole point of doing the transfers and the movement is for the allegedly for my development as
Yes,
a
right.
manager.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. My development as a manager. The
Yeah.
operative word in that sentence is allegedly. But if you think about the essential nature of Jupiter being about growth and expansion, as they like to say, it's big,
Yes.
it's grandiose.
It's big. Yeah.
Yeah, this idea of me moving to a different location to develop as further in my position.
And yeah, like specifically like Jupiter in a mutable sign, like a changeable sign.
A changeable
Here's
sign,
something
exactly.
changing.
And then on like a personal spiritual level with Jupiter, Jupiter's in my ninth natally. So there's the signification of the yes gods there with Jupiter for me. I mean, inherently Jupiter is a very spiritual, like he's very wise, etc., etc. But for me in my chart, Jupiter is in the ninth. So there really is this like Jupiter is about divinity and is about your connection to the gods, and it has just become so much louder. I think Jupiter went through my 12th was a lot. It wasn't as it was there, but it wasn't as like in my face.
Yeah.
But like now, it is like everything is happening. There's omens everywhere. It's just like it's so
you have like
loud.
expand. I mean, like it's when you got your first two talismans.
I got my talismans.
Jupiter and Gemini.
Was Jupiter and Gemini.
I mean, like the Venus one was a little bit before Jupiter Gemini, but like essentially that's. But you didn't. Yeah. You didn't like engage with it.
It didn't. Yes, it didn't want to engage with me. Let's get it. Let's get it
right. Let's get it.
let's not get it twisted. It did not want to engage with me until
that was
after Jupiter was in Gemini.
Because famously, you have a cursed Venus, so that Venus talisman was having some time.
Yeah, she's getting gangbanged.
She was fighting you.
She was ready to go. Which, as we said earlier, Venus sometimes not always nice.
Sometimes not always nice.
Love you, girly. Don't worry. I did use my Venus talisman yesterday as somewhat of a pendulum to kind of like talk about things and
Mm.
discern some things, and whatnot, which I did need to tell you because we'll talk about it. I don't want to talk about
Oh,
it now, but we'll talk about it after.
oh, oh.
And so yeah, just a lot more engaging with the gods, and it's in my it's my
Mm.
Jupiter trine. Like there's an
Yeah,
auspicious
yeah,
aspect there.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, it's been a lot about the spiritual side of Jupiter and
yeah,
that level of engagement, which I'm like gladly welcoming. I'm glad it's a
yeah,
year-long transit. I do
yeah.
think it's important to mention that there's no Jupiter Cazimi in Gemini, which is kind of crazy. The
Oh,
next Jupiter Cazimi
yeah. Right, of course.
is at 3 degrees of Cancer.
Cancer, yeah.
Um, on
Oh,
next June, at the end of next June.
yep, 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 yep.
So I really thought we were. I mean, I like should is a weird word to use in this context,
Yeah,
but there
no, right.
should be a Jupiter Cazimi in every sign, like once a year.
Sure.
But
But
we
it
do
was at
not
the
get.
end of Taurus
It
this
was
time.
the last
That's
one was
why.
the very end of Taurus, and the next
Yeah,
one is the very beginning of Cancer. So we
yeah.
will miss a Jupiter Cazimi Gemini, which might be a good thing. I
Yeah.
think exalted Jupiter. It's also a really weird dignity shift, like from Sag
Yes.
to Cap and from
Yeah.
Gemini to Cancer.
Cancer.
It's like
Yeah.
literal
Huge.
whiplash
Yeah.
with the dignity shift.
Yeah.
Um, this one is obviously preferred because you're going from not great dignity to better
Yes.
dignity.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, like I'd take that over like good dignity to bad dignity any day.
Hmm.
Um, but it is like it's a weird space, and I think we have to just let Jupiter and Gemini be a weird space. You're
I
taking
think
these
that. Oh,
grandiose
sorry.
ideas
Yeah.
and trying to make them more logical or make them
Yeah.
like shrink them in a way, and there's like an inherent conflict there.
Yes. Well, I think too, like I think sort of so the idea of Jupiter and Gemini can tend to be like overwhelm. There's so much information, don't know what to do with it. We naturally have a little bit of a remediation with Saturn like
The Saturn
squaring
square.
it. It's like Saturn is also obviously it's a square. That's not lovely, but like they are both day planets. They are also both mutable. Like Saturn isn't more powerful in this situation, right? They aren't
Mhm.
like both like one is like Saturn's not really dignified in water signs. So it's like there is a certain level of like Saturn isn't like there isn't overcoming, but there isn't like a domineering, absolute overpowering where it was like with like Saturn in Aquarius or Saturn in Capricorn with other planets that were in
Mhm.
this like, inferior
I mean, and
square.
Saturn is
Um,
effectively listening to Gemini being in, or listening to
yes,
Jupiter being in his sign. Like
yes, exactly.
he's
Exactly. Right. That's the
responding
other
to
part.
Jupiter.
Exactly. And so there's a little bit of like a remediation of the overwhelm, or like at least a recognition or natural recognition of the need to like put structure around these ideas. And I think that's like, part of what came up in my thing too that's related to this is like the kind of the approach that I kept feeling was like you have to roll with the punches with Jupiter and Gemini. Like keep
Mm-hmm.
going, see what happens. Eventually something will stick. One of your ideas will come into being. Don't lose faith. Like there's just like
Don't
try
lose
it.
faith.
Just
Yes,
you
don't
know what
lose
I
faith.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just like continue to try shit and see what happens. And like allow the ideas to come through and just try them. And if they don't work, that's okay. I think, because we talk about obviously our birth charts are like in like Hellenistic and traditional astrology is like and Vedic astrology are a reflection of our life experiences, which then shape our personality. They're not a direct correlation rate to our personality, but like if they're showing our life experiences, why Jupiter would be difficult in Gemini is because things are not always like the difficulty of detriment is that it's inconsistent. Like that's what's annoying. Jupiter is not constantly successful or regularly successful to provide you the confidence to be like, yes, I can do Jupiter things, or I can do that thing, or I can believe in or have faith in myself or the thing that I'm doing, right? There's inconsistency of success, which leads to a perhaps lack of faith um, in oneself or what they're doing. And so, like, thinking of it in that way, like, that's going to be the experiences we have. We're going to have experiences where, like, shit is just not always going to work out. Or it's, again, they're going to work out, but it's going to be so much more difficult to do it. Or it's just going to be like, well, I mean, sure, I did it. It was deeply inconvenient. And so, like with that, it's just allowing it to be difficult to a certain degree and recognizing that, like, honestly, it's a bit easier in Gemini rather than in Virgo in detriment because
Mm-hmm.
there's just this movable air that's like, I can keep going. Like,
Well, I mean,
just try it.
like there's triplicity there.
Right. Yes. Oh, right. Yeah. Of course.
There's
Oh my God.
triplicity
Yes.
in Gemini.
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
there's community there. There's
Well, yeah,
resources
there's
there.
support, right? Like that's what dear Demetra George talks about. What triplicity provides is the support of other people, the support of community, as you
Mm-hmm.
said. And so, like, even if it doesn't work, you tried
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
and people supported you and they were
And like
like they had your back.
Yeah, and like Jupiter is with Mercury right now, so like
Yep.
one of his lords is there.
Yep.
He's going to be with Saturn the whole time.
Yeah.
So, or going to be receiving the rays from
Receiving it.
Saturn
Yeah.
the whole time. So he's going to be with one of his triplicity lords,
Yeah.
or one of his co-triplicity lords in the air
Yeah.
sign,
Yeah.
the whole time with Saturn
Yeah.
and Pisces, and then with Mercury's movability, it'll be
Yeah.
changing, you know, constantly where Mercury's at, and that kind of third resource being there. But there's resource there. There's companionship.
Absolutely.
And we have to talk about how the Pope said faggot. I think it was just such
Which
so
Jupiter and
Gemini.
Like,
oh my god.
the Pope fucked up. The Pope fucked up.
The Pope who is Jupiter, like
who is literally
who is the
the
supreme
embodiment
figure of the
Jupiter.
Catholic Church. Like that's Jupiter right there. And he said something wrong. Or there's this tweet that I saw that said, I need to quote it correctly, or else it's not going to be funny. I bookmarked it for this purpose.
Oh,
so
perfect. I'm so excited.
I don't have to search for it. It's in my bookmarks.
Don't worry.
Don't worry.
Don't worry.
So
Incoming.
Pop Crave, love Pop Crave. Stan, I love Pop Crave. They said Pope Francis reportedly repeated a homophobic slur during a priest meeting less than a month after apologizing for using it. So this is now the second time.
This is the second time. To Gemini.
And someone co-tweeted it and said, have we considered that maybe the Pope can say the slur and this is him soft launching? Ooh.
The Pope coming out as gay during Jupiter and Gemini would be the best thing I have ever seen in my entire life, and I would write that shit down. That's like, it would be incredible.
Not predicting,
not just
happen. It would be fucking hilarious.
No, it would be absolutely hilarious. Obviously, it's not happening, but it's just, I mean, I'm just
like so
wonderful,
good.
So wonderful. It's like hilarious, hilarious. Like, yeah, girl. There's so many. You're so right. There are a lot of us taking over the world. Happy Pride. And I love how, yeah, he's doing it during Pride too. Oh, it's just it's so chef's kiss. Well, and thinking about like obviously Jupiter and Gemini too, and we were talking about like obviously life experiences and this idea of success in a non-traditional way, or just like throwing ideas at the wall and seeing what happens. Like, who are some notable? I mean, obviously we've come up with a list of some people who are notable that have this placement. Do you want to start with some peeps?
Yeah. So the one that I'm really, I don't want to say passionate about, but the one that really, like the fire in me is Alexander Graham Bell, because for those that don't know, I studied ASL in college, American Sign Language. I'm pretty fluent. I try to be as involved with the deaf community as I can. And if you know anything about deaf culture, Alexander Graham Bell is basically the Antichrist. He was a huge advocate for not teaching signing. His wife was deaf, and he was like a piece of shit to her. Yeah, like would only speak to her. I'm saying it right now. If you try to speak to a deaf person, you're the problem. Learn sign language. Write something down. Be accessible. You're the problem. So sorry. Actually, not sorry.
Period. Not sorry, literally in any way. Yeah.
But I will share his chart for those that are watching the video version. Which, if you're listening to the audio version, there's also a video version out. Crazy how that works.
On YouTube.
On YouTube. So this is the chart of. I had to look at my tabs to make sure nothing was awful before I shared this. This is the chart of Mr. Antichrist himself. He has Jupiter and Gemini in the 4th, ruling the MC and the Ascendant. And he is basically known in the deaf community for being the biggest reason why sign language is not as prolific as it is.
Oh gosh.
There is it still exists to this day, the Alexander Graham Bell Foundation. And they are like the biggest advocate for like hearing aids and oralism. And it's just like vile what they do. And so thinking about the MC Lord, what he is known for is inhibiting communication. Literally Gemini. Like he is known.
And Mercury's in Pisces.
There's a mutual
inhibiting
reception,
communication.
Communication. And the moon is applying to the Mercury. It's why Mercury is applying to Mercury.
Mouth agape.
Yeah. So he's a terrible human being. Like he invented the telephone. I don't fucking care. Was the telephone a good thing? Think about it. Think about your telephone usage.
Think about
your screen time.
He invented that.
He invented it. He's the reason.
I mean, I think it's interesting too that like obviously we're talking about him and it's a Saturn return. Wild.
It's his Saturn Jupiter synodic return. Yes.
Yeah. wild.
Wild. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
which is
terrible.
even bigger than just the Saturn return,
The
right? It's
just
the synodic,
it's the
right,
Saturn
of
Jupiter,
them.
the synodic return. Yeah.
Jesus.
So yeah, that was the one that I was like really passionate about talking about, was just like the MC Lord really being Jupiter and Gemini, and him known for inhibiting communication and trying to force
Yeah.
people into this one way of communicating.
Yeah. Oh, awful.
Just
Um,
vile.
Awful, terrible. Like another obviously is Barbara Streisand, who actually like I didn't realize she had Jupiter and Gemini. I've looked at her chart multiple times and I did not process it until you mentioned it. Yeah, I mean, and it's super fascinating, like because if we're thinking about this like success in a non-traditional way, she like really did take on characters that were like doing things the way they wanted to do them, and she also did her own projects. So like her first film at the end of age of 24 that she got literally a she an Academy Award for, which
24
is
Jupiter
Funny
return.
Girl. What? Oh, it's also
20,
her Jupiter return. Yeah.
24 Jupiter return. Well, probably like
Oh,
24, 20,
24. Oh, yes, I see what
23,
you're saying.
24 is when it
Yes,
happens. Yeah.
absolutely. Was Funny Girl, where she played this character. Fanny Bryce is a real person, who basically wanted to be on the Ziegfeld Follies in the 20s. And, you know, Barbara's playing this character, and she's like, the whole bit is that, like, she's like the funny girl because she's making up for her lack of what she feels lack of beauty, right? And she's like in this movie, and she's like, there was this one big, so she has this gorgeous voice, right? Like Barbara Streisand has this gorgeous voice, but Fanny Bryce is meant to have this gorgeous voice as well. So you know, the Ziegfeld Follies, they're like doing this big thing, big number, and like Mr. Ziegfeld gives her the final number in the show, right? This is a bunch of like gorgeous dancers, singers, all these people, and this is extravagant set, and it's the most beautiful bride in the world, I think is what the name of the song is. And she's
Mm-hmm.
like, I cannot sing this. Like, I'm not the most beautiful. Like, I can't possibly. And he was like, you're gonna sing this song, Fanny. And she was like, okay, I mean, I guess. And she's like, I just can't do it. She was like so embarrassed by it. So they go through the beginning of the song, the intro of like these gorgeous women, like adorned in jewels, the bride in spring. Like there's a whole, and the autumn bride is blah, blah, blah. Like there's a whole thing. And it's so extravagant. It gets to her. Her back is to the camera, and she turns around, and she had put a pillow in her, over her stomach. So it looked like she was pregnant. So that she made a bit out of it so that because she couldn't take herself seriously as beautiful as the
Mm-hmm.
most, especially as the most beautiful bride in the world. And like, and so I don't know, we were talking about like this, it's giving camp. It's giving like, I need to like, I can't take it seriously. I need to give something else. Like other characters that she had, like The Way We Were, like literally short curly haired woman, right? And like in the like, oh, I can't remember when The Way We Were came out, 80s. Oh, I feel bad. Anyway, I
It
think
was
it's the 80s.
probably
No.
84.
Well, I think it was
I'm only saying this because looking at her
because
chart, I'm noticing she has a Kalasarpa.
oh, okay.
So when she was 42, something wildly major to her career
Oh my
happened,
God. Well, we're gonna have to look that
which
up.
will be 1984.
Oh, okay. 1983, I believe, is when she wait, did I write this down? 1983 was when she won Best Director Golden Globe, which is like the first woman to ever win that. So that
Mhm.
makes sense. But yeah, so The Way We Were, can't remember again, I can't remember what year. I'm gonna still remember. But anyway, so she has like short, curly hair. She's like the idea of again, this like lack of beauty, which is wild because she has an exalted Venus, but exalted Venus in the 12th.
In the 12th.
Interesting. And so this idea of like not necessarily being like the most beautiful girl, but she's like a character who is also like a Marxist and is like advocating for all these things and has like a very traditional husband who she
Mhm.
falls in love with and blah, 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 blah. And then you know like again yeah as I mentioned she won best director a Golden Globe for directing in 1983 for Yentl, and Yentl is literally a character who's a woman who desires a Jewish woman who desires to go to yeshiva to study the Talmud, the Torah, etc., and like learn the holy books and do these holy work. And the only way she can do that is to dress like a man. And so
Mhm.
she cuts her hair and she puts on men's clothing so that she can learn, right? These like very non-traditional ways of succeeding, these very non-traditional characters that she was able to gain such acclaim through when in society these characters and these people that they were representing are not people that like necessarily that like society outside would have accepted, and like that was the whole point of their characters too, is that even within the society of of these movies they weren't accepted, and they had to
Mhm.
do it their own way and find their own path through it. So really fascinating like thinking through this Jupiter and Gemini stuff and then seeing that she also had that placement and then like trying to place where that is and just seeing it so naturally in her films and in her roles and in the work that she did. I mean, because she's wildly successful, obviously.
Yeah. I do want to talk about one more, but
Yeah.
it'll be
Yeah.
after I pause and go to the bathroom. So
Okay.
I'm gonna pause the recording.
Perfect.
And we're back. Now we're gonna talk about briefly America's favorite transphobe, Miss J.K. Rowling, who also Saturn Jupiter synodic return as well. I just
Oh,
noticed.
interesting.
Very, very weird.
Very weird. I don't like it.
Hate it. I mean, I hate everything about her.
Everything. I literally everything about her.
So this one is just funny to me because once again, Midheaven ruler is Sag ruled by Jupiter and Gemini, and she's known for her writing and her works, but also now in recent times has been known for her hate speech that she's been spewing.
Famously, if you will.
Debilitated Jupiter. And just another funny thing, if you look, the degree of the IC would be 10 degrees of Gemini, and she has Rahu right there. And one of my favorite quotes from my Vedic teacher, Freedom Cole, shout out. Definitely not listening to this, but shout out to Freedom, love you.
But you know what? We'll send it to him anyway.
Rahu's exaltation, or one of Rahu's exaltations, is in Jupiter, and one of my classmates in year 1
is in Gemini.
One of the exaltations of Rahu is in Gemini. So. Yeah. I mean, she would have Rahu in Taurus, but Rahu is exalted in this chart. And one of the student in my class asked Freedom, like, why is Rahu exalted in Gemini? And his response was, well, Rahu loves a scandal.
Loves.
And this thing right here.
A scandal. A solid scandal.
Solid scandal. Like, everything she does is a fucking scandal.
Yeah, she can't let it go. And she won't let it not be. Like, she so effortlessly could just stop speaking and just be rich. Crazy.
I mean, and 10 Gemini. Like, that's Aldebaran?
Yeah, it
is. Girly pop. All right.
Girly pop.
Anyway.
That's thoughts for our brain. Those are brain thoughts.
That's for later. Another talk about I guess after this song it's the main topic, but kind of the most the part that I'm most excited about.
Okay, so we have gotten to it. Thank you so much for continuing to listen, everyone. We have gotten to the meat of what we're doing here today. Okay, here's the origin of this. I was on Diet Prada. Love, as I mentioned before, Diet Prada. Everyone, and I mean this, everyone should follow. They are so incredible. They give the tea. It's incredible. Just follow. Anyway, so they shared this post from, I think it was basically an article from the Daily Mail talking about the Hot Rodent, the Hot Rodent Man, and like who these people are. And I post this story, truly honestly, it was on the new moon day. It was at the bar, literally me giggling after three beautiful cocktails, posting about the Hot Rodent Man. And I said, thoughts spelled THOTS, which I think threw people off.
Yeah.
But I thought it was so funny. So thoughts on the Hot Rodent Nakshatra. And I want you to understand, I have not been posting on Instagram for so long. So it's wild that I got this much. I got so much engagement. 30 DMs.
About the Hot Rodent Nakshatra?
DMs. Yes. No, not about the Hot Rodent Nakshatra, just about Hot Rodent Man. Some people were like, oh my God, I love this. Some people thought it was funny. Some people were like, oh my God, it's so mean. It was the funniest part is
I still want to fuck all of them. It's not
all of them. First of all, they are hot. That's what we're saying. Mm-hmm. It's not mean. Anyway, that's number one. Number two, I thought this was the funniest thing ever because you say Hot Rodent Men and you bring up the photos of these men and you're like, they look like absolutely. Rats. They do. And one thing, there's another thing that popped into my head. I mean, so I wanted people to respond with what nakshatra they think it is. And the only person who responded is Dolores, shout out to Dolores, and said Magha, which I don't know.
Is present. So immediately when I saw it, my thoughts were it has to be a nakshatra that is, when you look at the Vimshodri system, is ruled by one of the nodes. I don't know why, but there's something about the node nakshatras.
I thought the nodes were snake.
They are the nodes are like serpentine, yes, but there's something about the for me, it's the feature of
Sharp.
the nose in the rodent
Yes,
men
the
that
sharpness. Yeah.
is, and for some reason that was giving to me one of the nodes, not
Which
chakras.
I thought so. Anyway, I thought this was so hilarious and so funny. And like, honestly, no one even really responded about the nakshatra, but they had so much to say about this. And so I felt like I immediately texted John and was like, oh my God, my DMs are blowing up about this. We
We
have to
have to
talk
talk about it.
about this. We have to do research. Let's go.
And
So John, do you want to break down the research that we
yeah.
discovered?
So, I did a whole little Excel spreadsheet, which I'm not going to show you because it's not going to make any sense. But the nakshatras that were the most
We
prevalent
pulled
in
all of their like the nakshatras of each
all
planet.
placements of their,
Yeah.
yes, of all of their planets. So the visible planets and Rahu and Ketu. I looked at all of them. Most of them we don't have times for. So I
Yeah.
also noted on their birthday if it changes. So the moon, obviously the origin of the nakshatra is that the moon goes through one nakshatra basically every 24 hours. So for all of them except for, so the men in question that we were talking about are,
Oh yes, we didn't even
we
mention
didn't mention them. Barry Kyo, I don't know how to say his last name. Barry
Kyogen.
Kyo, the one from Saltburn.
Yes, I think it's
Mike,
Kyogen, but it's okay.
sure. Mike Feist,
Yeah,
Josh
from
O'Connor
Challengers.
from Challengers, Josh O'Connor from The Crown and also from Challengers, Timothée Chalamet, who's the only one that we have a time for,
Right.
from like every fucking thing he's like on everywhere now, and I think
Jeremy Allen
the
White,
hottest one, Jeremy Allen White,
the hottest.
the hottest one.
If you haven't, which I screamed about it online, so there's no way people who are listening haven't seen. But that Calvin Klein ad. Oh my God,
Which
you
is
have to Google.
we pulled reference
We
pictures for
oh
all
right,
of
right.
them, and we used that one obviously. So
Because we had to. So
we had to.
if you're watching the video version, you will see.
You will see.
You will see.
So actually let me show
Yeah, let's bring out the things.
let's bring out the
The
pictures.
photos. Let's prove the rodentness.
Yeah. So this is Mr.
There
Bear.
were also other men mentioned. We thought these were like we wanted to do five. Five made sense, and
Yeah.
also these looked the most rodenty. The other ones
the
were
rattiest.
the rattiest. The other
Well,
ones were
I think
other.
the important part is that it's Hot Rodent Man.
Yes, yes.
And like one of the mentions was like Steve Buscemi. I don't know about you. I would not touch that man. Unless he was offering me millions of dollars.
He might.
Which he might.
Buscemi.
Which Steve Buscemi, if you're listening.
Honestly,
and you need a sugar
if you're listening, we're right here.
I'm right here. Loved your work in
We'll be your boy toys.
Yeah, loved your work in Spy Kids too. It was phenomenal. But these were the hot rodent ones.
Right. So Barry,
who
so hot.
So hot. Mike, so, like he looks like Stuart Little. Like he's but
he
like
literally
looks like Stuart Little in this picture. Josh, who I just want to like hold on to those ears while I bang him. Like, oh, I mean, tell me I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong at all. You're not wrong at all. I'm just not a top. But yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Timothy.
Oh, this is a really good photo of him.
This is a good photo. I think this.
He's like he's giving serpentine. It's giving Rahu,
and that's what I mean. So he has Magha ascendant, which is ruled by K2. So like,
oh, it's K2.
So
okay,
yeah,
okay.
And I think like with the serpentine, like you'll see it in the slenderness of the eyes, and you'll like the here and here. If you look,
pretty.
Friend of the pod, Deja. She is Ashleisha Rising, which is literally the nakshatra that's ruled by the snake deity. And I've always been like, you look like a snake, and not in a way that I'm like, she's gorgeous.
Yeah, she's absolutely gorgeous.
And you look like a snake.
Yeah.
And Jeremy Allen White, who I would say maybe looks arguably the least rodent-like, but is,
I don't know, hard disagree. I think he definitely is giving. I mean, yeah, I see what you're saying. He does look different than the others, but I think he's still giving. There's the sharpness still.
But I think he also like Timothy. You see the Rahu.
Yes,
like it's true. Like the eyes, the cheek, like it's all there.
Yeah.
So I do think that there is some credence to being like maybe the node, specifically Rahu or K2 is giving this like rat like look.
That's interesting. Yeah, absolutely.
But when we pulled the nakshatras.
Yeah, what are the nakshatras? Because we've mentioned, or you've mentioned to me that like there are nakshatras like animals for the different nakshatras, right?
So
what are the rodent or rat nakshatras?
So there's yoni. They're called yoni animals for the nakshatras, and it ultimately comes down like it's used mostly for like compatibility.
Mm.
But
Oh, the animal. Right, right, right. I
the
remember that.
animal.
Okay.
Yeah. But so there's 27 nakshatras. So there's a male and a female of each
Mm.
animal, technically. And then there's one that doesn't have a counterpart. It's the mongoose.
Mm.
But so the rat ones specifically are Magha
Right.
and Purva Falguni, which are the
Mm.
first. They're next to each other.
Yeah.
Magha is the first sidereal. So this is all using sidereal longitude of the zodiac.
Right.
So add approximately 23 to 24 degrees to get the tropical
Right.
one. Magha is the first nakshatra of Leo. So it's 0 to 13 degrees and 20 minutes of Leo. Purva
Right.
Falguni is the next one. It's 1320 to
Okay.
2640. So it's like all of Leo
Right.
is the two rat nakshatras, minus like the last 3 degrees of Leo is the two rat ones.
Got it. So like,
However,
so tropically, that would be like
tropically, would be you add. So it would be.
Oh no, end of Leo, and then through Virgo. No,
end of Leo through like the middle of Virgo. Yeah, it would be like 23. Mula would be like 24 Leo to like 7 Virgo, and then Purva Falguni would be like 7 Virgo to like 20 Virgo tropically ish. This is all quick math.
Yes.
Do not come for me. However,
Mula or a Magha?
Magha. So sorry.
Okay,
Magha.
okay.
I was talking about Mula in my consult like an hour ago. So I was like, that one's also a K2 one.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Mula,
and some of these girlies have Mula too.
Yes.
But anyway, sorry.
But the one Mula was in second place. So the Mula popped up the second most amount of times, which is a K2 one. But the one that popped up the most was Uttarashada, which is my moon nakshatra.
Oh, are you giving Hot Rodent?
So my comment below. Am I giving Hot Rodent?
Comment below.
Yeah, do a little. Am I giving Hot Rodent?
Quote tweet. Let us know if John is giving Hot Rodent.
Didn't associate myself with it, but looking more at my features, I'm like,
it's honestly uncanny, John.
I kind of do.
once we like put like you were putting the photo up of them,
it was me
and
next
then
to Mike, and you were like,
oh no.
Well, let me show. Let me get into this gig.
No, you have to show it. Like next to. Truly.
I'm Mark Donaldson.
It's hilarious. It's so perfect.
So, given this rudimentary research, I guess Uttarashada is the Hot Rodent nakshatra, which is the nakshatra ruled by the sun, which is weird.
Interesting.
It's one of the sun's nakshatras, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, we also the biggest indicator is the placement of the moon and the placement of the moon, the placement of the ascendant, and the placement of the ascendant lord are the three that will determine mostly the physical.
Which is, I mean, two of those are hard to.
Two of those
impossible to get because we don't know what the
only person whose actual chart we have is Timothy's.
Timothy, who has Magha.
Who has Magha rising.
Which is the rat.
Which is one of the rat ones, yes. So when we look, Timothy's he's a Magha rising. His moon is in Uttara Bhadra, which is a Mercury nakshatra, and I think the animal, I don't remember what the animal for that one is.
It's also possible that all of them or many of them have Magha ascendant or Purva Falguni. Is that how you say it?
Purva Falguni, yeah. But like, so for example, if like for Uttarashada, Jeremy Allen White has both Saturn and Rahu in Uttarashada. So if he is ruled by, if he's a Capricorn or Aquarius,
right, of course rising, he does because he was born the day before me.
The day before you. He has Saturn and Rahu there. So if he is ruled by either of those planets, so if he's a Capricorn or Aquarius rising, in sidereal, then which I think he probably
could be. Absolutely.
He's giving Earth Saturn. Him, I was like, you're a tropical Aquarius rising. Like he has such a blockhead.
Yeah.
As someone with an Aquarius, I can say that we have a blockhead. Like I have a blockhead. I understand. It's not. I'm blockhead. I'm
No, but
I'm at peace with that.
it's definitely like he is giving Capricorn rising.
Yeah, exactly. He's giving sidereal Capricorn rising in my brain, tropical Aquarius
Hmm.
rising.
Yeah, exactly.
And what was the Josh has Uttara Shada rising or Uttara Shada Saturn as well. So
Hmm.
if he is tropical or sidereal Capricorn or Aquarius rising, his
Also
assistant of
would make
Lord,
sense. I mean, especially because Josh too has played uh a British, like someone with British
he
royalty.
played
Like
Prince Charles in The Crown.
yeah, right. And so I don't know, like I've just noticed that Saturn comes up really prominently in a lot of their charts as
Mhm.
like of the recent British royals.
Mhm.
And so it's definitely like I don't know, there's a certain level of like Saturn dignity does I mean obviously people have talked about this where like certain people who are playing people who've existed actors who are playing people who have lived before or are currently living
Mhm.
tend to share placements or tend to share qualities in some way
Mhm.
astrologically, so that would also make sense.
Mhm. Um, so yeah, Uttara Shada, I guess, is the hot rat nakshatra. I'm just gonna have to live with it.
We're just gonna, and you know what? Let us know if you guys have that.
Yeah.
If you are also a
Right.
hot
Oh,
rodent,
so
really.
and I did do the math for this one
Oh
because I
yes,
was like, we have
right.
to talk about Uttara Shada.
Oh right, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
as of today, using the Ayan Amsha today, because the Ayan Amsha is always moving and changing.
Oh, it's giving Gemini.
It's like 20, where is it right now? The Ayan Amsha right
20.
now is 24 degrees, 11 minutes, and 7 seconds, which means that you would subtract those degrees from the tropical placement
Ah,
to
yes,
get
got
the
it,
sidereal placement. The Ayan
got
Amsha
it.
of True Chitra. I'm a True Chitra truther. Okay. That's the Ayan Amsha we use on this podcast.
Period. No idea what that means, but yeah,
Yeah. What it means,
standing.
what it means for those of you that don't know how Ayan Amsha works, basically what you do is you pick a fixed star or something in the sky
Oh,
and
sure.
set
Yes,
it to a
yeah,
degree.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
using
yeah,
True
yeah,
Chitra, what it does is it takes the star Spica
yeah,
and sets it at zero Libra.
yeah, 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 yeah. I didn't know by name. I understand what it
Yeah.
is. Yes.
The Ayan that's mostly used is Lahiri, which sets also uses Spica, but sets it at like 2952 Virgo or something like that. Like
Oh,
it's
okay. Got it.
it's almost zero Libra, but it's not.
Hmm.
But the one I use sets it at zero Libra.
Mm,
So using the Ayan of today, which is 24 degrees, 11 minutes, and 7 seconds, Uttara Ashada in the tropical zodiac falls from 20 degrees and 51 minutes of Capricorn to 4 degrees and 11 minutes of Aquarius. So it's
so
basically
we could
all
give,
of the third decan of Capricorn and like the first
yeah,
half of the first decan of Aquarius.
and we could give like a few based on ages. You could give like a few more
Yeah.
degrees, like 18 cap.
I mean, the Ayan was really slow. It's
Oh, okay.
one
So then not.
degree
What would
every
you think?
72 years is
Okay.
how the
So we could do,
Ayan
yeah, 19,
precesses.
maybe, oh,
So
20, oh,
I
we're at the end of 20. You're right.
So
Okay.
I would say, like, honestly, like, yeah, like the end of night. So my moon is at almost 3 degrees of Aquarius. It's like 2 degrees 50. I don't
Hmm.
want to like dox my whole chart, but it's like
No,
very
sure.
close to. It's very close to 3 degrees of Aquarius. So it's
Yeah.
at the very end of this nakshatra. And the Ainamsha when I was born, it was so right now it's 24 degrees 11 minutes 7 seconds. When I was born, it was 23 degrees 48 minutes and 21 seconds. So it's
Got
only
it. Got it.
moved 30. It's moved half a degree in
Ah, okay. Okay. Okay.
26 years.
Got it.
So
Okay. So then 20.
so yeah,
20 to
20
4.
20 cap to 4 aqua, that
Okay.
range. If you have
Perfect.
planets in the tropical zodiac over there,
Then you're a hot rodent
you're in the
girl.
hot rodent nakshatra.
I'm obsessed with that. That's like, honestly, it was truly one of the funniest things. And
Yeah,
ugh,
figuring out that it was mine, and we were like, "What the fuck?" But it's okay.
but also accurate.
But also accurate. I will be a hot rodent. I will honor that. I will carry that title. I will bear the burden.
Period. 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 Um, well, this has been literally so much fun. It's longer, so we will say to listeners, this will be the longest probably episode,
Mhm.
unless we have something really deep to discuss with a future guest. But this is probably the longest our episodes will be. We don't really want it to go much longer, but obviously, as an introduction, there was a lot more that we wanted to kind of like
We just talk about us. We just talk about the origins. We do the whole thing.
exactly. But we hope you have enjoyed this beautiful discussion. I mean, I certainly have, and
Yeah.
I've definitely enjoyed preparing for it. And honestly, it's been a long time coming. I feel like we've been like there's been something feeling like it's been
Brewing. Yeah,
coming
yeah.
into for a long time.
Yeah.
So
Well, and you've been a guest on the Triplicity
Triplicity,
podcast, which is on hiatus right
yes.
now, but it's coming back
Oh,
eventually.
I
We'll
love
we'll
that.
we'll we'll see when.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah,
But yeah, this is just, I'm so glad that we're doing this. I'm so excited. And again, like under the auspices of this Mercury Cazimi, I feel so blessed to be your friend and to be on this journey together through astrological
I mean,
knowledge
yeah,
and fun.
we've been friends for like 4 years now, right? It
Yeah,
was like at some point in 2020 that we met
yeah,
virtually,
absolutely. Absolutely.
and then through Deja.
Through Deja,
And then yeah, we met IRL at
2022.
2022 Norwalk.
Oh,
So
such a good time.
yeah, it's the Jupiter square of our friendship.
Oh my God, it so is. Oh, right, because oh my God, it actually genuinely is. That's crazy. I love that.
It's like four
Oh.
years, Jupiter square-ish. Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess Jupiter would have been an Aquarius. Well, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I love it. It's wasn't it Aquarius? It doesn't matter. I love this. Anyway, um, yeah. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for gathering. Thank you for watching. We're going to continue to have podcasts hopefully every 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Every week is a little bit much, and
Especially when your girls
every
have full-time jobs.
full-time jobs. And once a month is just not enough. You know,
No,
you
yeah.
you want a piece, and we get that. And
You want a
so
piece of
we will
this
give you,
cake.
mommies will keep giving you what you need. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.